These bills are set down for third reading forthwith.
Mr Speaker.
The Honourable Christopher Finlayson.
Mr Speaker, I move that the bills divided from the Te Hiku Claims Settlement Bill be now read a third time. E te tumuaki kōrero o te whare tēnā koe. E aku hoa mema o te whare tēnā koutou. E nā manuhiri tuarangi, ti tai tokorau, nā iwi o te hiku o te ika, nā te kuri, te opori, nai takato, tararawa, no mai haere mai. Haere mai ki te whanganui atara, haere mai ki te whare paramata. Kei te momahara ki te hunga kua mene atu ki te pō, tai atu ki a Dame Whina Kupa, nāna te hikoi nui me te ohaki ki te motu. Kei te honore maturata hoki, nāna te moimoia I whai take I tātou I tēnei rā. He rā nui tēnei mō nā iwi o te hiku o te ika, he rā nui hoki mō tātou katoa. Rōrangatira mā, tēnei taku mihi, kia koutou, tēnā koutou, tēnā tātou katoa. Mr Speaker, can I begin by offering my very warm greetings to the people of Ngāti Kuri, Te Opori, Nai Takato and Tararawa, who have travelled here from the far, far north, the tail of the fish, to witness the passing of these treaty settlements into law. I do acknowledge the great distance many have travelled to be here today, particularly those who set off by bus at 5 a.m. yesterday morning and have travelled virtually non-stop through day and night to be here. I welcome everyone from Te Hapua, Te Kau, Kai Maumau, Kai Taia, the Hokianga, and so many points in between, to the head of the fish, to our nation's parliament. I acknowledge the presence of some of the rangatahi. I understand all of Pangaru Kura, as well as students from Pukimairo and Te Ranga Niwa Niwa are here today, viewing from the old legislative chamber, and others have also sent representatives. A very warm welcome to all those rangatahi. I also acknowledge those who have been unable to make the journey to Wellington and who are marking this occasion in other ways. I acknowledge the symbolism of Ngāti Kuri leaving all but 2 of their seats in this House empty to remind us all of those who experienced the grievances and have now passed on. Sadly, the news of the passing of Gloria Herbert, who led Tararawa in the early years of negotiations with the Crown, reached us yesterday. I know Gloria set the tone, leading with strength and grace and driving the message that both treaty partners can achieve much when they work to understand each other. It was fitting that she was one of the first to sign the Tararawa deed at Te Ahu in 2012, but she left us knowing the settlement was almost completed. My condolences to her whānau and to the iwi she served so well. And can I also, sir, take this opportunity to express my sympathies to Shane Jones and his family, Graham Latimer and his family at their time of dreadful loss. I know those ancestors whose lives were so impacted by the wrongful actions the Crown is seeking to atone for through these settlements and whose wairua are carried by the iwi here today. I honour those ancestors. Mr Speaker, this third reading is the penultimate step in a treaty claim and a settlement journey that is of national significance. It's not an overstatement to say that the iwi leaders here have been pivotal in shaping the way in which our country both examines the injustices which were historically suffered by Māori and strives to address them. Why are we having this debate today? Because in a few days' time, it will be 40 years since the great Māori land march set off from Te Hapua. Most New Zealanders who witnessed it were compelled by that seemingly frail yet passionately articulate woman who led the march, Dame Whina Cooper. The imagery was powerful and it stamped on our national memory. The messages conveyed even more so. Pakeha had to stop and consider what made a 79-year-old kuia decide to lead a march the very length of the North Island. I pause to acknowledge those here today, including the children of Whina Cooper, those who joined that protest and brought that very important message here to our nation's parliament. By the time the hikoi arrived, the country was watching, and one message was clear. Māori had legitimate treaty grievances. They had to be addressed. Of course, the Te Hiku people know the importance of having strong representatives in Parliament. The North sent a man that we all greatly admire, Matthew Rata, to this House, and he earned his place in New Zealand history for many achievements, but perhaps none more so than the establishment of the Waitangi Tribunal 40 years ago this year, creating the pathway for these important claims to be heard. Matthew Rata walked that pathway, but not alone. As Karangara, the Tribunal Waiata, says, the clarion voice of Rata calls, the movement in the tail of the fish responds. Wiki Karena for Te Opori, Simon Snowden for Tararawa, the Reverend Mauri Marsden for Ngāi Takato, and Makali Matthew for Ngāti Kahu joined Matthew Rata in submitting what became known as the Y45 Muri Whenua land claim in 1987. They were supported in the pursuit of justice by the expert evidence of Rima Edwards, the political courage of Graham Latimer, and the practical assistance of many, many iwi members. They benefited from the contribution of some fine legal minds. It could be said that the Far North was a judicial incubator. Dame Shana Elias, as she now is, Joe Williams, now in the High Court, David Baragwanath, now doing important work in The Hague, were just some of the lawyers who worked for these iwi. The historical picture captured in the report was of a strong people with all their rich layers of interconnections in history, ready to welcome the opportunities offered by the arrival of new people and to form relationships that would be mutually beneficial. Within 25 years of signing the treaty, the Crown had acquired all the most fertile of Te Hiku lands through land taking involved in pre-treaty transactions and fundamentally altering the relationships entered into between iwi and settlers. And through purchasing vast areas of land cheaply and then failing to follow up with the promises of settlers to generate those new opportunities. These good people were left with the most marginal land and little opportunity to sustain the people on their tribal lands. And that situation only worsened after 1865. While the tribunal heard the claims together, each iwi ultimately sought their own pathway to settlement, and I want briefly to reflect on each of the grievances and the settlement journeys. First, Ngāti Kuri. To the representatives of Ngāti Kuri, very, very warm greetings. If one knows Ngāti Kuri's history, it's not possible to think the Crown fulfilled the undertakings made in the treaty. Put simply, the Crown failed Ngāti Kuri. It failed from the outset to recognise the iwi as tangata whenua and respect their mana and rangatiratanga. It failed to protect their interests in land. It ignored the persistent pleas in the 1930s to return land the Crown wasn't using or to provide the economic development assistance which was being made available to other New Zealanders at a time when the situation of the people in Te Hapua, for example, was so very desperate. And it tried to remove the people from Kapa Wairua in the 1960s without complete success, I might say, because they proved tenacious and the bonds of whakapapa could not be extinguished. I remember so well the tears shed at Ngātaki on the 7th of February last year as I read the acknowledgements of the hurt and the suffering the Crown caused to Ngāti Kuri ancestors and those who are still with us today. I'm so pleased the settlement will restore Kapa Wairua and other lands to the iwi, and I acknowledge those who fought for that outcome, including Ratiba Petera, Piri Paroni, Motu Rapata, Hone Aperama, Rata Raharui, Paraneho, Demira Sazi, Nina Subritsky, Sana Murray, who told me the story of how she was hit when she spoke te reo at school, Sophie Waitai, Alice Palmer. The iwi negotiators, Harry Burkhardt, Tom Patricevic, Catherine Murupainga Iken, they were all ably supported by the Trust Board, but also by Kuia and Kaumātua, particularly the late Meri Penfold, that respected member of the Maori Battalion, Charlie Petera and Piniaha Murray. To Te Ao Pauri, I say welcome. I pay tribute to the extraordinary patience and resolve Te Ao Pauri have demonstrated since Matu Wiki, George Witana, Winiata Brown, Waitai Petera and John Walters led the iwi into negotiations in 2000. I acknowledge the others who picked up the mahi of the negotiations, that great New Zealander Ata Kapa, Michelle Wee, Hugh Karena, Raymond Subritsky, Ebony Duff, Peter Lucas Jones, Mahia Nathan and the support team. When Ata Kapa submitted a claim to the tribunal in 1998, he asserted that Te Ao Pauri have a proud history to maintain. Not necessarily in a glorification of tupuna in battle or heroics of rangatira, although I'm sure Shane Jones would say that that's not exactly correct. But Ata wisely noted Te Ao Pauri have pursued the gradual and determined progress of the iwi as a unit over the years to the present. They've been particularly driven to ensure these settlements will enable the development of Te Ao Pauri and allow this iwi, with the other iwi of Te Hiku, to exercise kaitiakitanga and rangatiratanga over Te Onora Atohe. This day has been a long day coming for Te Ao Pauri. They have faced many challenges. There have been at least 5 Crown offers, 2 agreements in principle, and a period of withdrawal from negotiations when the Crown did not meet iwi aspirations. Te Ao Pauri have dealt with 4 ministers of treaty settlements, over 20 Crown agencies, 2 local authorities. Through all of that, they have flown and sought a place to land where others might follow. Finally, with this legislation, the Te Ao Pauri Trust Board will be wound up. And of course, what's new, there are 11th hour challenges there as well, but I'm heartened by the new tribal entity and the leadership that has emerged, and in relation to those troubles, I promise representatives of Te Ao Pauri that the Minister for Māori Development and I will be working closely with you to see our way through those problems. I come to Ngāi Takato, the descendants of Tūwhakateri, and say, behold the pioki from Rangaunu. It does indeed create quite a wake. The historical account in the deed of settlement describes the marginalisation of Ngāi Takato by the Crown. They bore the brunt of surplus land policy and early Crown purchasing. What is more, the Crown failed to recognise their mana and thus failed to protect their customary interests. This settlement is about restoration for Ngāi Takato and an ability to create a future in which your connection to Kaimaumo, to Tamake, to Te Onaroa Atohe and numerous other areas can no longer be marginalised or ignored. I'm so pleased they have already secured through our early provision of settlement quantum highly important lands that the Crown could not provide in certain parts of their rohe. So many people have contributed to Ngāi Takatou Kaupapa over the years, including, as I said earlier, the Reverend Maury Marsden, the Reverend Harold Petera, Lance Brown, Laddie and Harriet Cook, Ivan Erstich, Matilda Dick, Helena Marsden and Walter Erstich. While they did not have the opportunity to participate in negotiations, I know their work and their legacies guided the iwi, and can I say this, I also acknowledge former Member of Parliament Hone Harawira. Thanks to Wallace Rivers, to Rangatane Marsden, to Mangu Aurorau and the team for the tremendous hard work they've put into securing a better future for the people of Ngāi Takatou. And to Rarawa, as I said, we gathered here in 2011 to acknowledge the deed of settlement. It's such a great privilege to have them back here today. As I think about what led Dame Whina to march to this house 40 years ago, I know that she carried the burden of Te Rarawa ancestors, generations of their people over more than 170 years have borne the responsibility of seeking redress from the Crown. There are so many people here who deserve to be thanked for their tremendous work in bringing those stories to the attention of the Crown. That work has continued throughout the 19th century and again into the 20th century when your leaders participated in commissions of inquiry into grievances about land, including, for example, at Motukaraka. Iwi leaders sought recognition and redress for other grievances, such as the Crown's acquisition of timber and resources at various places, and the Crown's administration of Maori land in the 20th century, including Te Karai. The human capital Te Rarawa people have had to spend in the pursuit of redress is truly regrettable. In the face of all those grievances, and my summary is hopelessly inadequate, it's humbling to think about the approach they brought to negotiating a settlement. In 1990, Dame Whina told an international audience to remember, quote, that the treaty was signed so that we could all live as one nation in Aotearoa. Te Hiku leaders sought to walk the talk of that by designing redress that would set out, for example, how Te Rarawa and the Crown would work in the future. Te Rarawa leaders have pushed hard to guide the Crown to a better treaty relationship. Led by Gloria Herbert, they emphasised the need for the Crown and iwi to treat one another with respect and with honour. Other treaty negotiators, Hami Piripi, Paul White, Malcolm Petty, under the guidance of Joe Cooper, had an unwavering commitment to securing a settlement. I know that they've been supported by many others, including Tame Murray, Heck Busby, and many, many more. Mr. Speaker, finally, let me say something about shared redress. Individually, the settlements are significant. They provide each of the iwi an opportunity to determine their future. Collectively, however, the settlements are truly unique. Their decision to join together to negotiate and agree common arrangements across significant redress that is important to all appropriately reflects the ancestral network which binds all together, but it also speaks to a great vision. It takes true leadership to work together to that degree. I conclude by acknowledging the quality of the negotiators. Iwi have been served by some extraordinarily gifted people who were committed to finding innovative and flexible approaches to the redress. The qualities of the leaders in the galleries, we have the best leaders that one could possibly seek to negotiate with. They are an aspiration for progress. They had the tenacity to pursue it. They had an ability to be forthright with grace and often with humour. And they kept me on my toes. I'll never forget my first meeting with Hugh Karena when he said, the big question, Minister, is whether you're up to it. I want to acknowledge the fine work of my Chief Crown negotiator, Pat Snedden, in both the individual and collective negotiations. He phoned me in 2008 and asked me if I wanted him to continue. I said, go for it. He did a wonderful job and I salute him today. And I also acknowledge the hard work of officials from the Office of Treaty Settlements. I particularly acknowledge Maureen Hickey. Maureen Hickey has worked on these settlements for over 10 years, and I salute her for her ability and her professionalism. Finally, sir, I want to reflect on what we've collectively achieved. It's said that Matt Rata quietly returned more Crown land to Māori in a single term than any minister previously. I'm so pleased these settlements continue that legacy through one of the largest returns of land to Māori ownership through any treaty settlement. We're taking a unique approach to conservation lands by establishing the Te Hiku Conservation Board and through the Korowai more broadly. Cape Reinga will have its name Te Rerenga Wairua restored. It will return to Māori ownership and protection. Almost 30 years ago, Te Hiku asked in the tribunal for the spiritual significance of Te Onoroa Atohe to be appropriately recognised in legislation. Today that comes to fruition. And in addition, Te Hiku will, alongside other local authorities, provide governance over Te Onoroa Atohe. Mr. Speaker, finally, I hope the day will come when we in this House pass legislation giving effect to a Ngāti Kahu settlement. In the meantime, safeguards are provided through the accumulated rentals bill. It will ensure that interest from the rent on Crown forests starts to accumulate for the benefit of Ngāti Kahu. Can I, in closing, express my thanks to members of Parliament who have worked with me over the years on this matter. As has been said earlier in this House, this has been truly a bipartisan effort. I've always enjoyed talking to Kelvin Davis about these matters, for listening to his wisdom on the topics, and even Hone Harawera and I could sit down from time to time and talk sensibly. I want to finish now by expressing my excitement for the future of Te Hiku. The commitments between Te Hiku, iwi and the Crown that we are giving legislative weight to are very significant indeed. And I have every confidence that this is a new beginning, not just for iwi collectively, but for each of the iwi and the Crown. And I'm very grateful to you, Mr. Speaker, and to the House for giving me the indulgence of going slightly beyond a 10-minute period so that I could cover all those points. I commend the bill to the House.
The question is that the motion be agreed to. Kelvin Davis.
Tēnā koe, Mr. Speaker.